Are you here? Yep. And what we have for you today is something that's, well, it's part record review, part concert review, and some meandering musings. It's all about Peter Mayer and Brendan Mayer's 2017 album, Long Story Short. No, that's the title of the album, Long Story Short. Peter and Brendan? Well, they have great talent, but they're also father and son. And your reviewer, Paul, or Paulie, whatever, he saw them perform at the Evening Muse in Charlotte, North Carolina, June 25th. The album and this occasion prompted some pondering about something deeper and more personal. Let's see what it is. Watch.
I was all set for my second time seeing Peter Mayer and Brendan Mayer take the stage to make music together. To do that, I needed to get to Charlotte, a place I haven't seen in more than 15 years. I knew after seeing Peter and Brendan in Bluffton, South Carolina, that I would go see them anywhere. Well, within a 5-hour vicinity. The reason for my eagerness was about more than great entertainment, but the full motivation didn't become clear in my mind until after this show. There are and were many fathers and sons in music. Bob Dylan and Jacob Dylan, John Lennon and Sean Lennon, Frank Sinatra and Frank Sinatra Jr. Considerably less rare is collaboration beyond the occasional one-off or novelty. It's interesting what Peter Mayer and his son Brendan Mayer do. They don't exactly feel like a duo. Each can hold the attraction of a crowd alone, with just guitar and vocal, yet they also can complement each other so well. I observed them at the now-defunct Roasting Room in Bluffton. They have a great respect and obvious affection for one another, yet nothing they do on stage is sappy. I've been familiar with Peter Mayer's work for more than 20 years, but my first exposure to Brendan Mayer was on their collaborative album, Long Story Short. Some tracks seem to highlight one or the other, and some both. That's the case with the live show as well. Unlike some duos, there is no ego battle. Nothing like the troubled waters of a certain famed duo. Listening to their debut album, the first thing I noticed, definitely the material. They've got an abundance of great sources. Consider that in addition to their own solo careers, they are a part of the Mayer-Kirby-Mayer acoustic group with Scott Kirby. Then Brendan is in the Floating Collective. And then there's Peter's 34 years writing, recording, and touring with Jimmy Buffett's Coral Reefer Band. Within their writing circle are some real heavyweights. The aforementioned Scott Kirby, Hall of Fame songwriter Mac McAnally, and the understated but stellar Roger Guth. Yeah, they're going to have songs, all right. A lot of the songs Peter and Brendan perform in their live show come from the album Long Story Short, which has an undeniable 70s sound. When you consider all of the wonderment that sprang from the 70s, in my book this is an endorsement. Listening to the title song, Long Story Short, I imagined it as Seals and Crofts meets the Bee Gees. Not sure how Peter and Brendan would feel about that. That's not to say that there's not plenty of modern sounds in their show or on their album. There's Wrong Place, a song Brendan wrote and performs. It's got a melody full of intensity and moodiness, with cryptic lyrics. I'm enamored by Wrong Place. Peter and Brendan aren't shy about throwing in a great cover. One of the songs they covered on the Long Story Short album is the Simon and Garfunkel classic, The Boxer. That night in Charlotte, they decided to do another one from that duo, The Only Living Boy in New York. This was a knockout that floored me. I hadn't heard harmonies this good since I saw Simon and Garfunkel live in 2005. That evening, they also did a bang-up reimagination on Barefoot Children in the Rain, a tune that is wistful but hopeful. This song originates from Buffett's best 90s record, Barometer Soup. If you're wondering how Jimmy Buffett songs sound when someone else does them, give their version from Long Story Short a listen. It works fantastically as a duet. Peter mentioned his old friend and boss Jimmy Buffett a few times. He did another song from Barometer Soup as a solo performance in tribute to Mr. Buffett. It was the poetic "The Night I Painted the Sky," and many in the room appeared to be emotionally stirred. Many songs fed the audience's appetite: Chain of Love, Blue Guitar, and some of the new songs from Peter's album Songs for the Birds. In the hands of Peter and Brendan, everything just fit together. After the show, there was something I noticed that was quite different from other events. Hardly anyone left right away. It was a bit like church. Everyone kind of milled about and visited. A few commented to one another about the experience. Peter and Brendan couldn't have been more welcoming. As they spent time with everyone, you could see how far it extended beyond people saying, "Great show." It dawned on me. This was communion. I knew then that this was a large part of why I was there. A nice couple asked if I'd take their picture with Peter and Brendan. They seemed to be glowing from the experience. Another man expressed that having seen countless shows at the Evening Muse, this was by far number one. Then, getting ready to leave, he asked, "Jimmy okay?" holding a thumb up. Not wanting to pry for personal details, it was more of wishing someone well. Peter assured the man that all was looking good. Visiting with Peter and Brendan a bit, we talked about writing and what we can learn from people like Julia Cameron and Natalie Goldberg. Then, Peter shared a memory of Jimmy Buffett's surprise performance at the Peter and Brendan concert at the Stephen Talkhouse in Amagansett, New York. Peter remarked about what he saw and thought about Jimmy choosing to play in front of people, when a lot of people facing a health concern would be staying away from the stage. He said that seeing Jimmy's face as the audience showered him with love made a significant impression. Needless to say, Jimmy lit up. It occurred to me that Jimmy was also seeking the same thing as everyone there in Charlotte: communion. People sending love has a way of washing over you. Not wanting to overextend my welcome, I decided to head out into the city street. It would be a long ride home, and besides, I wanted to grab a bite. Spotted a place called Billy Jack's Shack and figured some bar food would be cheap and satisfying. Eating and being alone has benefits sometimes, and one is a chance to contemplate and reminisce. I couldn't help but think back to my first time seeing Peter Mayer in 2002. That was a night that I won't forget. My friend Jeff, musician Jeff Pike, had invited me. It was the first time I met Peter, his brother Jim Mayer, and Little Flock general manager Mike Davis. It was also the first time I met Monty Toller, who became a dear friend who has passed away. At the first show, there were several things that stuck out. I remember Peter performing by candlelight. Then Peter wanted to do something that he does at so many of his shows that has stayed with me all the time. He wanted to remove that invisible barricade that separates artist from fan. He picked up his guitar and sat down on the tabletop, playing music right in the middle of the crowd. It was communion. Thinking of the healing effects we can have on one another, and perhaps hearing about Jimmy Buffett finding medicine from his fans, made me think about something even more personal. My dad, who is 76, suffered a stroke and just got out of a month-long hospital stay. The idea to interview him about the ordeal was informative. He said that without a doubt, the greatest source of healing was from communion. So much of his healing he traced to being around loving people. What it all meant for me, he said, going on. How it strengthened me, it encouraged me, and gave me hope. We live in a time where distance has been conquered. We have streaming, FaceTime, WhatsApp, and a host of other channels and distractions. But to really enjoy each other, the best thing we have, we should keep it as real as possible. As I thought about this, I noticed the nice couple who asked me to take a picture of them with Peter and Brendan. They smiled at me as they were leaving, and the man said something to the effect of, "There's that guy again." They told me their names, Scott and Katie, and that they both found the performance of Blue Guitar a highlight of the concert. But I saw it all so differently then and there. I knew that they had come for communion, just like me, just like Peter, just like Brendan.